Why do girls seem to have their act together before boys do? Are they wired differently? Are expectations different? In this episode of Yash's podcast, I'll dive into the science, social dynamics, and stereotypes of the phrase, girls age faster than boys. From school relationships to emotional intelligence, we're unpacking what it really means.
Is it nature, nurture, or something else? Hi, welcome back. We're back once again on Yashi Studios, and in this topic we're going to be talking about the way girls mature faster than boys. So we're going to be diving into, because I've heard this from parents, teachers, and even I've noticed this too. Like, have you noticed how girls prepare for their future earlier while boys are still act goofy? And I also noticed that boys still tend to act childish in their early teens. They still tend to have the same interests kids do. Still into maybe a little bit of cartoons, I guess. But for girls, they grow out of it much faster. Much faster. Like no girl is still into kid things at the age of 12 anymore.
I mean, I think that's right, but I didn't realize that it's literally because of our physiology, what makes us who we are. So I think it's pretty interesting. I thought it was a myth, Yash.
Let's see. Yeah, because I heard that there's this thing that girls tend to typically start puberty earlier than boys, leading to the development of secondary sex characteristics like breasts, hips, and a growing voice. This is probably the reason why an 11 or 12-year-old girl looks so grown, like a grown teenager, while a 11 or 12-year-old boy still looks like a child, like a literal child.
Well, didn't we read too that girls hit the pruning phase at 10 when boys hit pruning at 20?
Yeah, the pruning phase in your brain, this happens to girls at the age of 10, but for boys, this doesn't happen until the age of 20.
What is pruning? Did we ever look that up?
So the pruning phase... Okay, so during adolescence, both boys and girls experience a natural brain remodeling process called synaptic pruning, where the brain eliminates unnecessary connections and strengthens existing ones. This process, which begins in early childhood and continues through adolescence, refines basic circuits, making them more efficient while both sex undergo pruning. Research suggests girls may experience this process earlier than boys, particularly in areas related to emotional regulation.
So boys are not able to regulate emotions as fast as girls? Is that what it's saying?
So the development timing, while both boys and girls undergo synaptic pruning, some girls indicate that girls' brains may complete this process earlier than boys, particularly in areas related to emotional regulation. For example, the brain reaches its largest size around age 11 for girls and age 14 for boys.
That's a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when does everybody catch up?
Okay, so yeah, and I also noticed that I actually noticed this thing where the teachers compared a 5-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl with starting kindergarten, and for the girl, they were already mature enough. They seemed a bit older, maybe 6. But for the boy, they still had that toddler mentality. They were like, where do I want to go?
Do you think it's because we train our boys different? Or is it because of the makeup of their bodies? Like girls have an XY chromosome and boys just have the Y chromosome, right? Or is it backwards? Did I get that backwards?
Like what age does the female frontal lobe develops? Oh yeah, it also develops at like 25 for females, just like males.
Okay. Female frontal lobe is developed. So by 25, everybody's developed. So even though boys seem to start off later and girls earlier. They by the time everybody's 25, they're on par.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see female and male frontal lobe development differences. So what I just see here, the frontal lobe, which is responsible for executive functions, continues to develop until the mid-20s, or both males and for both males and females.
That the pruning process for the brain, this happens for girls at the age of 10, but for boys, not until 20.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Also, male frontal lobes are 1% larger than those of females, which is not surprising because men and boys tend to be bigger than female. Oh.
Switch to standard now to keep chatting.
Oh no. Sorry. We'll cut that out.
The brains for boys and girls work differently. Girls have much higher tactile sensitivity and are much more sensitive to bodily contact. Therefore, girls are more sensitive to touching, stroking, etc. As children grow up, parts of their brain become smaller as unnecessary connections between cells are pruned. So for girls, this happens at the age of 10. For boys, it happens at the age of 20.
Wow. That's interesting. So it's literally the physiology.
Yes.
And it's not just the myth. Like, I thought it was because we put more responsibility on girls at younger ages, and the responsibility doesn't go on boys until older ages.
And also when childhood ends. For girls, childhood tends to cut off much earlier than boys.
Really?
Like the childhood cutoff. Legally, it's 18.
Right.
But mentally and physically, most people say it's the beginning of puberty. So like 12, 13.
Oh.
Some people end childhood at 10. They usually use like 3 to 9 as a part of their childhood.
So wait a minute. Help me to understand. Our frontal lobe is not fully developed till 25, 26.
So shouldn't adolescence go up until you're 25?
That's my question.
Yeah. You should. I don't think you're a full adult until your prefrontal lobe is fully developed.
So then why do we put pressure on people to perform as fully functional adults way before, like 18? You're not an adult at 18.
No,
and technically
18
you are.
is when you're legally considered an adult. Like 18 to 20-year-olds are basically just young adults, and they're basically just, they still feel like, you'll probably still feel like a teenager when you're 20. You'll realize it's not fully grown because, your brain is not fully developed yet, and you still can't drink in the US.
Yes, but why do we give people who are 18 the responsibilities of to go off to war, for instance, or to make financial decisions and be responsible before their brains are developed?
Like, I don't know how 18-year-olds get more rights for decisions than 17-year-olds, even though your brain is not fully developed until you're 25.
Thank you.
Which means you still most likely make dumb decisions until you're 25.
And probably past that.
Yeah.
Everybody makes a dumb decision once in a while, regardless of what age. I just think it's not fair to put pressure on younger people to do things that are hard to do before your brain is able to.
Yeah.
So if your brain's not developed until 25, should you be able to drive a car before you're 25?
No, but 25 is the age you can rent a car.
Yeah, but I don't know if anybody should drive a car before 25.
But because like the age where you can drive is 16.
And that's way too young.
And you're not even an adult
driving
yet.
Is driving an executive function? Let's look that up. Is driving an executive function?
Like not all teenagers are the same. Their age is 13 and 19, and that's massive. Like 13 and 19-year-olds are in a completely different life stage. One's in college and one's in middle school.
And it says here, driving is a complex behavior that relies on executive functions, including decision-making, problem-solving, and multitasking. However, the relationship between executive control and willingness to engage in distracting driving is not well understood. So we're saying that the brain, you need executive function for the brain to work, to drive. But we're acknowledging that the people who we say you can drive at 17, 18, 19, 24 don't have those brain developments.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So what do you think we should do?
We should probably, I think maybe it'd be fine, but they have like, but we should have like a bit of restrictions on driving where you're not obtaining the basic driver's license with no restrictions until 25. Like 18 is the age you can get your basic driver's license in New Jersey, 17 for a probationary license, but I feel like you can't. I feel like the basic driver's license shouldn't be until you're 25 when your brain is fully developed.
I agree. So what if it's provisional? So at 18 to 21, you can drive only in daylight hours.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should get the full impact of driving at night until you're like 23 at least to start.
Yes.
You can't be seen on the road.
Like,
and then it'll save people a lot of money because you know how much it is to insure a boy in New Jersey on the car insurance?
Yeah, but like, and I also did this thing, and how different is a 20-year-old compared to a 29-year-old? And for both genders, that's huge. One's in college, and only 2 years out of high school, and one's already has a lot of more experiences with adulthood.
Wow. Okay, wait, let's see. Car insurance for first-time drivers in New Jersey. Female young drivers, it's between $2,898 or $241 extra per month. And for male drivers, $3,230.
Yeah, and I also noticed that boys grow out of their childhood interests a lot later than girls. Boys will still tend to have their childhood interests even in maybe even as late as early teens, like 13, 14, even 15. But for girls, at 11 or 12, they're already into makeup and fashion and all that stuff. But for boys, many of them are still into the kid stuff like cartoons.
What are you able to be into as a boy? I feel like boys don't have a lot of things.
You also don't have a lot of things you're into as a boy. So that's why they tend to be still into kid stuff at the age of 11 or 12.
So you're saying we need more things for boys to do? Like, boys are not going to be into, not all girls are into makeup, but not all boys are into trucks.
It's perfect. It's okay. I don't think there's ever an age limit for doing certain things that are considered kids things. Like, for example, there's absolutely no age limit for watching cartoons and all that stuff. You can watch them up until you're dead.
I love a good cartoon. I absolutely do. So I agree with you. My next question, though, for you is, if boys develop slower, right? Not slower. What's the best? At a different rate than girls, should women be in charge of more in the world because developmentally we're more prepared to do so? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, and I noticed how late teens, it depends. Both have difference, but for girls, it depends. Like, I know some girls at the age of 17 who already look tall and they're in their 20s and all that stuff. And then some have a baby face and they look really short when they're 5'3", and they look really short that they still look like they're 13.
And all the boys that I know who are, I shouldn't say men, who are under 25, they look like babies to me. They're big, they're tall and they're muscular or whatever, but they still look so, like you said, a baby face.
Yeah, I have a baby face. Like, I have huge cheeks. My skin is still really smooth. I have super tiny hair on my chest. I have thin muscles.
Okay.
And sometimes it's kind of hard to believe I'm really tall because, tall when I have a baby face. And when I hear my voice, it still sounds like it hasn't fully dropped yet to the adult level.
You may not be able to hear it the way that people around you hear it, but it's definitely dropped.
But even when I hear it on video, it still sounds quite high pitched to other people my age's like voice. It still sounds quite high pitched and similar to like a 14 or 15-year-old in my opinion, over in like an 18 to 20-year-old in my opinion.
But I don't think you're 18 to 21. You're 17.
Yeah,
and you
17.
sound like a 17-year-old. You definitely don't sound like a boy. You sound like some kind of teenager.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no way that a boy has a deep voice like yours.
But like even 13 and 17 is a pretty huge age too.
Age difference, you mean?
Yeah, even for boys and girls, even for boys, I noticed that even ages 14 and 17, 18, like a freshman and a senior in high school are pretty different in terms of maturity. Because the senior in high school is already most likely finished with puberty, and they're already capable of reproducing, while a freshman is still in the early stages of puberty.
Huh. Wait a minute. Can you repeat that? Because I think I got lost somewhere.
Like your teenage years are like a transitional phase between childhood and adulthood.
Yes. Absolutely. So are we doing a disservice to young people by putting the pressure on you to do adult things before your brain is able? It doesn't
No?
seem fair. It feels unfair to say, you know what, be like an adult, even though I know your brain is not developed enough to be
Yes.
an adult.
Yeah, and like being like an adult, which means you should still. We should like. I mean, 18 to 24-year-olds still didn't get that full adult rights. Maybe most adult rights at 18, but not like the complete full adult rights until 25. And the drinking age in the U.S. is 21, which is so random.
Why is that? You know what? You say things that make me think. Why do we have a drinking age? Why is the drinking age 21 in the US?
And I also noticed how ages are perceived differently. Like a 30-year-old is probably old to a teenager, but to like a 60-year-old, they're still young.
Yes. It says here the MLDA, and I'm not sure what that minimum legal drinking age of 21 years helps lower the risk of developing alcohol and substance abuse disorders. Oh, I didn't know that. So we have a drinking age of 21 because
Yeah.
it lowers the risk of people getting addicted and having problems.
And I also noticed that in Canada, it depends on the province. Like Ontario's drinking age is 19. So that's kind of a milestone.
Okay. But what if we said you can't drink until your brain's developed?
Oh, that's gonna be tough. Or maybe we can lower the drinking age to like 18.
No, I think we should go higher,
Maybe
Yash.
higher to 25.
I think so. I don't think you should be able to do things that are going to alter your brain until your brain is developed.
And I noticed that you have to be 35 to run for the president.
See? Do you understand? That's
Yes.
exactly my point.
That's kind of the highest age requirement. And like 65 is like the retirement age. And I think that's kind of when you're considered old. Like 65, the age you retire.
And old is also relative because if you live to 95, what is old? Are you old at 65, 75, 85?
No. But like, no, like ages are perceived differently. A 30-year-old will be, like a 38-year-old, someone in their late 30s will be could be considered old to a teenager. But to a 60-year-old, they're young
Yes.
to them.
Absolutely. And it's all perspective. And your perspective is going to change for every year you live. Like I have a perspective now of somebody 50. There's no way I could have had that perspective at 18.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that I would live until I was 50. I didn't know because I had no concept of time in that way. But now that I do, it makes sense how I used to think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
But like
think
65 is usually the age most people are considered to be elderly.
65 is elderly?
Yeah,
Wait,
60
is there a difference between elderly and senior citizen?
Oh yeah, senior citizen.
What's the difference?
Because
see.
65 is the retirement age.
Difference between you type.
So in the United States, a senior citizen is generally considered to be 65 or older.
Okay. Okay, senior is used to describe an age group. Elderly refers to a matter of capability. So you can be a senior citizen and not elderly.
Yeah.
So elderly is really about how you're feeling. So you could be 95, and if you're going fast and running around, and like Aaron's grandpa is still he's 97. He still goes for walks. He still drives. He still does all this stuff at 97.
And also the good part about having a baby face at like at an early age in adulthood, which means you don't have to worry about looking like an elderly person. You can still look young in your middle age.
Yes. And it's also about genetics, right? Because of the families we come from.
Yes.
They tend to, people who have more melanin in their skin tend to age slower than people who don't have melanin in their skin. So you have melanin in your skin.
Yeah.
And that means you age at a slower rate.
Because like on camera, I still think I look 13 on camera.
Right now, you think you look 13?
No. The only reason I feel like I don't get mistaken for being younger, it's because I'm really tall. I'm 6'2". That's the only reason I think I don't. If I was like the average height for a 17-year-old boy, I think I would have looked younger. I think I would have been mistaken for being younger.
That's interesting because I think 17 looks so different because everybody's at a different age of development. Like Taverico plays sports. So some of the boys are 14 and they're this tall, like really this tall. And some of them are 14 and they're as tall as you.
And I noticed that girls hit puberty earlier, which means they get breasts at like the age of 10 or something. Which means I've noticed some usually around 10 to 12.
Yeah.
And for boys, it's more later. It's like
right. And it's not so obvious. Right? I don't know. Is it obvious? Like the whole don't you guys get what is this called? The
Adam's apple?
Yes. Like Taverico now, I can kind of see his Adam's apple more than ever. I never saw it before. I didn't even know. He just like your Adam's apple. You got an Adam's apple.
Yeah, it's definitely not uncommon to come across a 12-year-old boy that's still into childish stuff like cartoons.
Are you?
Cartoons
when
and
you were
kiddish
12?
video games. They're still kind of, it depends. I mean, I liked Roblox at that age.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of still into childish stuff.
And is that childish? Because most boys that I know as a teacher, playing Roblox is what they did till about 12, 13. And then they got into, oh gosh, what's the other one with the M?
Although some 12-year-olds may already be into teen stuff with that hormonal thing. For girls, most 12-year-olds are already into teen stuff, and they've
What's
already
teen
grown.
Stuff though?
No, I'm talking about things typically are mostly associated with teens, like music and fashion, instead of cartoons and toys.
Because you told me you're into teen stuff because you don't play video games that much anymore. You're more interested in watching YouTube and learning things and going to Reddit.
Although boys tend to, for girls, typically they grow out of kids stuff at the age of 11 or 12. But for boys, some people don't grow out of it until they're 18.
And there's that.
And for boys, some people don't grow out of kids stuff until they're 18. They can still watch, even I still kind of watched cartoons until when I was like 15.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. You can watch
I
it until
love
you're...
cartoons.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with that at an older age. And some people I noticed get teased. Like one person on Reddit was bullied at 10 years old for playing with dolls, which means that she decided to download Instagram and Kick.
And why?
Bullied and forced to grow up fast because you were bullied?
And online bullying is a real experience. I didn't have that growing up. I don't know I was bullied in real life, but it's very different to be bullied in real life in a small little area at one little school and then to be bullied online for millions of people possibly. That must be terrifying.
I mean, at 9 or 10, I still felt like a literal child, and it's just too hard for me to call myself a tween or an early adolescent when I was 10 because I still felt like a full-on child.
And now you feel like a
teen.
Okay. And because now you are a teen.
Because even at like 9 or 10, I still felt like a full-on child. I was still into kid stuff.
Do you think that when you become a quote unquote man, whatever, at 18 or 21 or 25, that there's a feeling that is associated with manhood?
Like some boys don't even, manhood. I don't know when you start calling boys a man. Maybe when they're finished with puberty.
Maybe, but I don't know if it's a feeling. Is manhood or womanhood a feeling?
But most teenage girls, they usually don't get described as woman. Even 19-year-old females don't usually still get described as a girl instead of a woman.
Yeah, but there's a big reason why our society does that. We talk about women. We call women girls when we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
People will say, "Oh, I went out with this girl." No, you didn't. You went out with a woman.
Or maybe at 20, they still refer to them as girls.
But should you? Are you a man at 20?
Yeah, you're definitely a man.
So then girls should be women at 20, right?
Yeah, I'm a woman. Oh, yeah, I noticed that I was talking to my friend yesterday, and he said that most girls have their brains fully developed at like junior year of high school, which I don't think that's true.
It's not possible for them to have
because they showed us the kindergarten that a 5-year-old girl is already mature enough to be in kindergarten, while a 5-year-old boy is like a toddler with that. I don't want to go.
Do you ever feel like all of this is separating girls and boys more from each other?
And I also noticed that like tween years, ages 10 to 12, boys pretty much still look like children. They don't really look like adolescents to me, but for girls, they do seem like adolescents to me. But for boys, no, they still pretty much look like children.
Okay. So now as we're moving towards our wrap up, what are some of the final thoughts from this conversation? Did you learn anything?
And I actually learned that it's actually with brain development that girls hit puberty earlier, and then like this pruning thing, this happens to girls at the age of 10, but for boys, this doesn't happen until 20.
So there's the disconnect.
Yes.
All right. Any other shout outs that you want to give to anyone, or do we want to talk a little bit about what's coming next?
And what's coming up next is the negative effects of fast food on the American obesity.
That's a good one. Say that again for everybody.
So next episode, we're going to be talking about the negative effects fast food has on Americans and on how the obesity problem is with the fast food.
All right. This was a great conversation, Yash. You want to sign out?
Yeah. So thank you for watching Yash's podcast. Signing out. Bye.